Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, September 6th. We are beginning week 3 of our course. I have read through all of your papers that you submitted for last week, and they are looking really good. And I'm about halfway through most of the discussion board pieces that you uploaded this week, so those look good too. I wanted to make sure I remind you that next Monday, September 12th at 7 o'clock, you log in for the library orientation. That link is under week 2, looking ahead. It's also as a cut and paste link under this week 3, under the looking ahead section on Blackboard as well. Either one of those links will take you to the same place. It's a live session, so it doesn't open up until about 15 minutes before it begins. And once you open up the session, then you log in under your name and listen through the section. I uploaded a copy of the PowerPoint. It's a very short PowerPoint. I think it's 6 or 8 slides. But you can kind of follow along and make notes on that as you go if you'd like. And then make sure that you capture a screenshot of the last part of the training, and then you upload that as evidence of attending the library orientation. Okay, just a couple of notes before we get into this week's work. Please make sure, especially when you're working in Word, that you look at all the blue and red highlighting and underlining that Word gives you, because it means that you have spelling or mechanics errors on your paper. Some of you are submitting papers that have a lot of errors on them. So you should be putting everything through spell check and grammar check. You'll learn in the library orientation that there are also some resources where you can check your papers with them as well. But there really is no reason why you should be uploading papers that have those kind of errors on them when they're right there in Word. So please make sure that you do that. On a positive note, most of the reference pages are correct. An odd thing that most of you don't seem to be aware of is when you write or type the title of your text or article, you only capitalize the first word in the title. I know that goes against everything we've ever learned or taught our students, but that's the APA format. So only the first word is capitalized in the titles. Another request that I have, I talked about this last week, please do not upload Google Docs to Blackboard. I spent so much time grading this week, cutting and pasting your links, and sometimes they weren't shared with me, so then I had to email you. The way that Blackboard should work is I click on your name and up pops your document, and I don't have to go looking for it. In a few cases I clicked on the link and up it came. That's fine. But when I have to cut and paste into my browser and look for your piece, it's just too time consuming to do that so many times over. I would say at least half of you put your assignment 2 in Google Docs, and it got really frustrating. So please make sure that they're in Word format before you upload them. I want to congratulate all of you for getting your responses in on discussion board. It looks like all of you got all of your responses in on time, and all of them were thorough. So thank you for that. It looked really good. They were really interesting. I haven't finished reading all of those yet, but I have responded to about half of them, and they look very thoughtful, well done, good responses to one another. I'm going to assume by this time you've made contact with your group members and you've divvied up the work for this week's assignment on the collaborative group assignment involving a PowerPoint. Interestingly enough, one of you made me aware of the fact that there is no rubric for this assignment. I'm not sure why that is, and I didn't want to try and put one together last minute. So what I am going to do is I'm going to look at the criteria that I put on in my notes and uploaded last week, week 2. So what I had done, if you haven't looked at those notes, is I broke down what goes into each slide according to the directions on the assignment. So for instance, there's a title slide, there's a stating your obstacle challenge slide, there's character moral education, a minimum of 3 slides. The activity and the assignment, that was a minimum of 4 slides. The proactive steps you're going to take prior to that, that's a slide. The anticipated outcome and your intended goals, that was a slide. I asked you for a quote, that's 1 slide, and then a reference slide in APA format. So I'm going to look at those things, and if all of those pieces are there and they are correctly answering the components of the assignment, then I will award your group full points for that assignment. All right. Also, you have 4 videos to look at. The first one is a really fun one. It's one of those drawing ones where the guy's talking while he's drawing. What he talks about pretty much mirrors what you're going to hear Daniel Pink talk about in the 3rd and 4th videos. Those are both Daniel Pink. If you aren't familiar with him, he wrote a book called Drive that's been very well received, especially in the business world, but it talks a lot about motivation. And so I found it helpful to look at that first one, take a couple of notes on it, and then Pink just kind of reiterates and expands on those ideas for you in the following slide. The second slide is a poem, and it has to do with teaching what do we get distracted by. It's loosely linked to the idea of motivation, and what do those things, what is teaching the way that he talks about in the poem, what does that look like in your classroom? He's got a couple of lines in there where he talks about, let me teach like a Steinway, let me teach like the first snow falling. What does he mean by that? What does that look like for you in your classroom? I'm going to upload for you a copy of that poem so that you don't have to watch the video over and over. It's a little abstract, and I wanted to make sure that you didn't have to play that too many times to kind of get a sense of what it was being said there. So I'll put that onto Blackboard. So your other assignment for this week is a discussion board response to these 4 videos. So what it asks, it gives you 4 questions. How does the culture you create in your classroom work to motivate your students? Where do motivation factors and moral education intersect? When looking at your students' many and varied home situations, how does motivation come into play, and to what extent do you see this as the teacher's role or responsibility? Actually, that's 3 questions, sorry. Look at those 3 questions, and you have the option of responding to one of those in depth or to several of them in less detail. So that's your choice. The whole idea of moral education is pretty much the basis of Chapter 5, and motivation as well. So as always, I find it helpful to read the chapter first and then to see where these other pieces fit into that. All right, that is really about all I have for you today. Again, if you have any questions, I hope you'll email me or call me. Some of you are really good about clarifying, and I don't mind taking those calls and responding to those emails at all. So please know that that's my job. I'm here to do that for you. So be sure and feel free to do that. I'm pleased with the progress that you're making overall with APA. I know it's really hard to do this. I'm struggling doing this by feedback on your papers and by email. It's not my style to do that. I would have rather have taught this to you face to face with examples. But being as an online course, you have the examples that you need, and many of you are using those well in the Blackboard, so continue to do so. Have a great week, and I will talk to you next Tuesday. Thanks. Bye.